After the jolt of walking straight into a polished glass wall, Julian found a new sense of calm. It was just a touch, after all. He wasn't a teenager anymore, so there was no reason for such an over-the-top reaction. In a way, though he felt bad for Mark, he was grateful to him. If it hadn't been for that startling encounter, Ethan might never have been pushed to react the way he did. He could feel it, a shift in the foundation of their relationship. Ethan was finally aware of him, truly seeing him as more than just the man who managed his schedule and filtered his calls. The thought brought a quiet joy to Julian, a reminder to simply watch where he was going from now on. Mark had gone silent, and Julian felt it wasn't his place to reach out. Then, a few days later, a notification pinged on his phone. It was a picture of Zoe, Mark's daughter. A wave of relief washed over Julian seeing the little girl looking safe and sound. Their last parting had been so abrupt and chaotic. A follow-up message from Mark explained that he felt Zoe's fondness for Julian could be beneficial for her recovery. He asked if Julian would be willing to stay in touch, to continue being her friend. Julian agreed without hesitation. He truly hoped Zoe would find her voice again soon and wanted, more than anything, to one day hear the little girl call him Uncle Julian. Mark's casual acceptance of the situation made Julian reflect on his own feelings. He thought that if Mark had truly been deeply in love, he wouldn't have been able to resume contact so easily after being turned down. He imagined, for a moment, what it would be like if he and Ethan were to separate. He knew with certainty that he couldn't just go back to being a subordinate. He'd have to resign, to walk away completely. That was the inherent danger of an office romance. When it shattered, the fallout made even being colleagues an impossible task. Julian shook his head, trying to dispel the thoughts. He was overthinking again. Things with Ethan were finally moving in a positive direction. He felt bolder now, maintaining his connection with little Zoe without the fear of Ethan's disapproval. He understood that while Ethan was prone to theatrical displays of frustration, he would never do anything to genuinely hurt him. As long as Julian was open and honest, Ethan's anger would manifest as little more than a short-lived storm of sharp words. Speaking of Ethan, his behavior had been particularly strange lately. Every so often, Julian would turn around and find Ethan staring at him, completely lost in thought. It happened several times before Julian finally broke the silence, asking his boss if there was something on his face, questioning the intense scrutiny. Ethan's gaze wasn't sharp or intimidating, not the usual icy beam he used to command a boardroom. It was soft, almost adhesive, clinging to Julian in a way that felt entirely new. As he continued to look, Ethan said something completely unexpected. He remarked that Julian was, in fact, quite cute. Julian froze. He had always been self-conscious about his youthful appearance, worrying it made him seem less capable in a corporate environment. He wore glasses specifically to project an air of maturity. Hearing that from Ethan sent a flush of heat to his cheeks. All he could manage was a mumbled thank you. A few days of this strange, quiet observation passed before Chloe approached him with an invitation. She asked if he wanted to visit the studio to see Ryan on set. Julian was so surprised he could only blink and repeat the question back to her. Chloe, Ethan's cousin, just smiled and nodded, explaining that it would be a casual weekend trip, a get-together for the members of their small group chat to see their friend at work. Julian felt a little overwhelmed. He was only in that group chat because of Ethan and rarely participated in the conversations. He asked if Ethan was going. Chloe made a face and said she'd asked, but he declined. Julian was about to say he'd pass as well, but Chloe read his mind. She insisted that he was his own person, separate from Ethan. She argued it was better that the CEO didn't go, as his presence would feel like an official inspection to the film crew. After her persistent encouragement, Julian finally agreed. He mentioned the plan to Ethan later that evening. The man, who had been in the middle of eating, paused as if a switch had been flipped. After a long moment, he looked up, his voice laced with irritation as he questioned why Chloe had invited Julian specifically. Julian couldn't fathom the source of his anger, though Ethan seemed to be in a perpetual state of annoyance lately. Perhaps that was why he shed so much. Julian asked if he shouldn't go, ready to cancel. Ethan vented his frustration by prodding at the food on his plate with his fork before muttering that he never said Julian couldn't go. He told him to go and have a good time. A smile touched Julian's lips. That was Ethan. Always blustering, always setting rules, but in the end, always indulging him. That weekend, Chloe picked him up for the trip to the film studio. With Ethan and their lawyer, Lynn, absent, the only other person joining them was Vince. The studio was in a production city just outside their own, a 2-hour drive that required a long stretch on the freeway. Chloe was behind the wheel, her car speeding down the highway with the 2 men as passengers. Julian felt a bit embarrassed letting a woman drive and offered to take over, but Chloe waved him off. She cheerfully informed him that Ethan had specifically warned her about his poor driving skills and instructed her not to let him handle the freeway. Julian was about to defend himself against this slander when Vince, lounging in the passenger seat with one leg crossed over the other, spoke up. He told Julian not to mind her, that her kind had good stamina, so she should just drive. The comment instantly ignited Chloe's temper. She demanded to know who he was calling a dog. Vince shot back a look that dared her to start something, confirming it was her. Confined to the driver's seat, Chloe couldn't physically retaliate, but her words were just as sharp. The 2 of them argued for the rest of the journey. Julian's pleas for Chloe to focus on the road were lost in their bickering. He finally understood Vince's reputation for provocation. They arrived at their destination in one piece, because 2 of them were from the parent company's executive circle and the third was the infamous Vince, a figure no one in the media industry dared to cross. The film crew had arranged for someone to greet them personally. Chloe might have claimed they were just visiting as Ryan's friends, but she and Julian both came from administrative backgrounds and understood professional courtesy. They had brought gifts, which they now distributed to the crew from the trunk of the car. Ryan was in the middle of a scene. They parked nearby and walked over to the soundstage. The film was divided into 2 parts: a real-world portion filmed on location in the city, and a fantasy segment shot entirely within this massive studio. Even as an industry insider, Julian was impressed by the scale of the building. He thought about the budget reports he'd seen at the office and knew the company had invested heavily. This movie had to be a success. From a distance, Julian could see Ryan's silhouette moving energetically in front of a vast green screen. Filming was grueling work. Ryan, despite having won major awards, had long since moved past the idle phase of his career. He chose good scripts, worked diligently, and maintained a positive public image while partnering with Ethan on business ventures on the side. This film, a family-friendly co-production, was perfect for him. His clean, scandal-free reputation and national appeal made him the ideal leading man. To maintain that image, however, required vigilance. Recently, a wave of negative stories had surfaced online, sparking a vicious war between his fans and detractors. The company's PR department was initially thought to be handling the crisis, but Julian later learned it was Vince who had stepped in. Vince, in addition to his legitimate media empire, secretly ran a company that specialized in online reputation management. He had been contracted to handle the situation, and the result was a resounding success, culminating in the original source of the rumors deleting the posts and issuing a public apology. While the ordeal had ultimately boosted Ryan's popularity, it had left a small dent in his pristine image, making the investors nervous. The production had become even more cautious since. Julian and his companions watched Ryan film from the sidelines. Vince grew restless after a few minutes and began to wander off. The set had strict rules against media access, but no one dared to stop him. Everywhere he went, people reacted with a mixture of fear and awe, like he was a walking plague. His reputation truly preceded him. Finally, Ryan finished his scene and walked over to them. Julian observed the actor, who had a faint smile on his face. He had broad shoulders and a narrow waist, accentuated by the black vest he wore. Julian mentally estimated his proportions, suspecting he was one of those rare people with a perfect 9-to-1 head-to-body ratio. He exuded an aura of elegance and gentle charisma, perfectly matching the character he was playing, though Julian knew his actual personality was far more energetic. Ryan greeted them with a grin, and for a while, the three of them chatted, with Chloe and Ryan doing most of the playful bantering while Julian listened and laughed. Ryan mentioned how glad he was that it was just them. He said that if the silly lion and old Lynn had come, one would be overly critical and the other would nag him to death. Chloe gestured towards Vince, who was exploring in the distance, and asked what about him. Ryan just waved a hand dismissively, saying Vince was beyond his control. Chloe then revealed with a grin that they were there on a mission. Julian was taken aback. This was the first he'd heard of any mission. She explained that she'd heard the production was facing some setbacks and wanted to check things out. Julian had some knowledge of this. Since Ethan had demanded to be kept abreast of all film-related news, even the most minor issues were reported back to headquarters. He knew about recent equipment malfunctions and personnel disputes, but he hadn't realized Chloe's visit was an unofficial inspection. Ryan disagreed with her approach, saying there were professionals to handle such things. He insisted they were there to relax and have fun, offering to have someone give them a tour of the production city later. Chloe remained non-committal, simply asking what kind of professionals he was referring to. Ryan gestured towards a corner of the soundstage, explaining that after a shooting log went missing recently, they suspected sabotage and called the police. Now, detectives were investigating. Julian looked in the direction Ryan indicated and saw several police officers questioning crew members. He watched them curiously, his gaze landing on one officer in particular. Just then, the officer turned his head, and their eyes met. A jolt went through Julian. It was the same straightforward, no-nonsense cop he had met when he'd found the little tiger Zoe. As a personal assistant, Julian had a knack for remembering faces, and after the lengthy interaction they'd had, he was certain it was the same man. He quickly looked away, hoping the officer had forgotten him. But it was not to be. The officer was already walking towards him. He stopped in front of Julian, studying him for a moment before a small smile appeared on his stern face. He asked Julian if his cat was a calico or a ginger, and whether it was doing well. Julian groaned internally. Why did this man have such a good memory? Chloe and Ryan looked on in surprise. Chloe asked how he knew the officer, then added with a puzzled expression that she thought his cat was black and white, remembering how Ethan had once posted pictures of it. Julian's breath caught in his throat. He forced a smile and told Chloe she must be mistaken. He quickly changed the subject, turning to the officer and greeting him. The policeman nodded, remarking that he was surprised Julian remembered him. Julian thought to himself that a man carrying a cat and spinning wild tales was a hard thing to forget. The officer continued, explaining that he had only cleared Julian of suspicion after the child's father had called to say she had been found. Chloe stared at Julian, amazed. Her usually composed colleague had a history of telling tall tales? Julian maintained his smile and asked the officer what brought him here. The officer, whose name was Miller, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said he was on a business trip. That usually meant he was working a case. Julian, impressed that he was a field detective, respectfully asked for his name again. Officer Miller replied, and then added that he already knew Julian's name from the business card he'd given him. Julian was shocked he remembered that too. Ryan, seeing them catching up, finally interjected. He commented on the strange coincidence of Julian knowing the investigating officer and then asked if they had found any leads regarding the set. Miller glanced at him and clarified that he was just passing through and that the local department was handling the case. So far, the investigation had yielded nothing. The set was too crowded, and identifying a saboteur would require interviewing everyone individually, which was impossible without halting production. The crew understood this. Calling the police was more of a deterrent than anything else. The police advised them to tighten security, be more diligent during shift changes, and keep detailed logs for expensive equipment. The crew insisted they were already doing all of this, especially after the recent incidents. But the shooting log had still vanished, causing chaos and delaying filming by a full day, which cost a small fortune. Hearing this, Julian had an idea. After the local police finished their initial inquiries and left, Miller stayed behind. He claimed his official business was concluded and he was now on his own time. The crew was thrilled to have an officer on site. They offered to treat him to a proper lunch, but Miller insisted on eating the same catered box lunch as everyone else. Julian joined his friends. Vince, having completed his tour of the soundstage, rejoined their group. Seeing their worried faces, he scoffed, asking what was with the long faces when they were supposed to be having fun. Chloe shot him a look, ready to rebuke him for his insensitivity. Vince just clapped Ryan on the shoulder and told everyone not to worry. He promised that once he found the culprit, he'd beat some sense into them. Ryan, seemingly on the same wavelength as Vince, agreed they should try to relax and enjoy the visit. He had to film again in the afternoon but promised to take them out for some famous local barbecue chicken that evening when he was done. Later, Julian pulled Chloe aside and quietly asked if Officer Miller was just a regular person. Chloe gave him a strange look and confirmed that he was just an ordinary cop. Julian couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Miller than met the eye. He had half expected him to be one of them, a shifter. Chloe assured him that even if he wasn't, an ordinary person couldn't do anything to him. Julian nodded. She was right. Owning a cat wasn't a crime. After a moment's thought, he whispered to Chloe that a locked door might stop a person, but it wouldn't stop an animal. An animal could get in through windows or vents. Chloe's expression turned serious. She admitted she'd had the same thought, but the set was a chaotic mess of scents, making it impossible for her to distinguish anything useful. They exchanged a knowing glance. That afternoon, instead of touring the area, Chloe and Julian stayed on set to watch Ryan film. Even Vince, surprisingly, settled into a chair and dozed off. Every day the film was delayed meant more money burned. The recent troubles had everyone on edge. Strangely, the media had been completely silent about the production's issues. Normally, such stories would have been sensationalized by now. Julian glanced at Vince, sleeping soundly, and knew it was his doing. He was keeping a lid on everything. Thinking about Ethan's friends, Julian realized they were all formidable in their own right. The thought gave him a sense of security, and he turned his full attention back to Ryan. The actor was captivating under the bright studio lights. Julian thought to himself that felines like Ryan really were beautiful creatures. The film had many action sequences, all shot inside this cavernous, multi-story industrial soundstage filled with equipment and machinery. Near Ryan stood a tall steel scaffolding, about 2 stories high, rigged with lights and other gear. The movie's other main character was a talented young child actress who was rehearsing a scene with Ryan. Julian had never watched a film being made up close before and was completely engrossed. The atmosphere was one of focused, diligent work, with everyone intent on their tasks. In an instant, disaster struck. The scaffolding beside the actors suddenly shuddered and then, with a deafening crash, it collapsed. Gasps of disbelief and horror filled the air. Ryan and the little girl were directly in its path. The child, terrified, froze on the spot. But in that split second, Ryan scooped her into his arms and leaped. It was a single, impossibly swift movement, yet they covered several meters, landing safely just as the massive structure slammed into the ground where they had been standing. The impact sent equipment scattering across the floor. For a moment, everyone stared in shock. Then, the crew rushed forward to check on the actors. Thanks to Ryan's incredible reflexes, they were completely unharmed. But the little girl was deeply shaken. Filming for the day was ruined. The set was cleared of non-essential personnel to manage the chaos, and the child was taken away to calm down. As the crew began to clean up the debris, Officer Miller stepped onto the scene. Julian and the others followed him. Chloe rushed to Ryan's side, asking anxiously if he was okay. Ryan, his face grim, shook his head. The string of accidents was wearing on everyone. Another day of lost work meant another massive financial hit. Miller crouched down, examining the wreckage. The steel frame had snapped in two. He pointed out that the connection point had been poorly welded. With the weight it was supporting, it was bound to fail eventually. The rig had been there since the beginning, a ticking time bomb. But then he added something more sinister. The brake, he noted, looked like it had been sawed through and then hastily re-welded, but not securely. It was confirmed. This was sabotage. Vince erupted in anger, vowing to find whoever was responsible. Because the rig had been in place for so long, it was impossible to know when it had been tampered with. Chloe quietly knelt beside the broken metal, her voice cutting through the grim silence of the men. Everyone turned to look at her. The sharp-eyed manager blinked and said she could smell it. She thought for a moment, then described it as a fresh scent, the kind you'd find on a construction site. She was certain the weld was done either today or yesterday. Julian knew she was talking about the smell of welding slag. He was once again in awe of her sense of smell. With the set having been constructed long ago, there should be no such recent smells. This narrowed the suspect pool considerably. They just had to check who had been in this area in the last 24 hours. Chloe turned, her nose twitching, as if trying to follow the scent. But her words had likely alerted the culprit. As she looked back, she saw a figure dart away from the side of the soundstage. She cried out. Before anyone else could react, Ryan took off in pursuit. Julian's first thought was how fast he was. He barely had time to blink before the actor was a blur, rocketing towards the fleeing shadow. It was like watching a Ferrari tear off the starting line. Ryan and the figure vanished from sight in an instant. Vince was the next to move, sprinting after them, followed by Officer Miller. Finally, Chloe and Julian, along with the now mobilized crew members, ran after them, but they were no match for Ryan's speed. Julian, a man of letters not athletics, found himself lagging behind even Chloe, a fact that bruised his ego until he remembered he was trying to outrun a wolf. That made him feel slightly better. Ryan had been a good distance away, but he closed the gap in seconds, effortlessly vaulting over set obstacles. The two figures disappeared into the labyrinthine area of temporary structures and storage units beside the main soundstage. The group split up to search. Julian, of course, stuck with Chloe. Vince, having lost the trail, doubled back to join them. Guided by Chloe's unerring sense of smell, the three of them were the first to locate Ryan in a small, cramped break room. The scene that greeted them was something Julian would never forget. In the narrow space, Ryan had cornered an animal against the wall. It looked like a medium-sized dog, but with longer front legs and shorter hind legs, a disproportionately small head, and a coat of mangy, brownish-yellow fur covered in black spots. It was baring its teeth in what looked disturbingly like a grin. Julian instinctively asked Chloe what it was. She told him it was a cheetah. He almost laughed, clarifying that he meant the animal it was facing, not Ryan himself. Ryan had transformed. As Julian had suspected, he had become a magnificent golden cheetah. His long, sleek body was coiled, muscles taut and fluid, his tail twitching with each breath. He had his front claws extended, head lowered in a classic hunting posture, pinning the other creature to the wall. Chloe closed the door, sealing the five of them, 3 humans and 2 animals, inside the room. Then she answered his question. It was a hyena. Julian had only ever seen them on nature documentaries, where they were always cast as the villains. Up close, the creature was just as unsettling. Vince, however, didn't look scared. He looked amused. He sneered, saying he'd wondered who had the guts to cause trouble on his turf, and it turned out to be a pack of hyenas. At the sound of his voice, the hyena looked up, and its fear seemed to intensify tenfold, even more so than when it was facing the cheetah. As Vince stepped forward, looking ready for a fight, the hyena snarled, baring its teeth. In response, the cheetah simply extended its long, sharp claws. The hyena immediately understood its predicament and deflated. But it seemed to be more afraid of Vince than the cheetah. Vince, showing no fear at all, strode forward and began slapping the hyena's head repeatedly with an open palm, like he was bouncing a basketball. He growled about beating it to death. The dazed hyena, seeing a cheetah, 2 untransformed humans, and another man who seemed even more ferocious than itself, knew it stood no chance. It yelped for him to stop. It was clearly just a low-level thug. Vince continued his assault, demanding to know what they were up to. The hyena, seeing stars, confessed immediately. It whimpered that its boss had sent it, with instructions to do nothing more than delay the film's production. Vince pressed for a reason. The hyena explained that they wanted a piece of the profits. Vince stopped hitting the animal, stunned. Chloe and Julian exchanged a bewildered look. Just then, there was a sharp knock on the door. Officer Miller's voice called out, asking if they were in there. For the second time, Julian found himself in a compromising situation with an animal and law enforcement. The occupants of the room shared a silent, 3-second conference before springing into action. Vince threatened the hyena, telling it to change back or he'd smash its skull in. The hyena dejectedly transformed back into a young man with garish yellow hair. Vince tossed a pile of clothes at him, then hauled him to the door, opened it, and shoved the young man into Miller's hands. He announced that this was the criminal, handing him over to the officer. Miller cuffed the suspect but blocked Vince from re-entering the room, asking where the others were. From inside, Julian could hear the officer's persistent questioning. Chloe stepped out, explaining that Ryan was resting inside. She identified herself as a manager from the production company and stated that the man had damaged company property and nearly injured people. She offered to accompany Miller to the station. After scrutinizing them for a long moment, Miller agreed and led them away. Once they were gone, Vince slipped back into the room. The cheetah, which had been holding its powerful form, suddenly collapsed. Julian gasped, rushing forward to ask what was wrong. Vince, his expression softening slightly as he looked at the panting animal, explained that the sprint had pushed Ryan to his limit. He just needed to rest. Julian remembered that cheetahs, for all their speed, were sprinters, not marathon runners. A long chase could cause them to overheat dangerously. The magnificent animal lay on its side, hot air puffing from its nostrils, its golden coat with its black spots rising and falling rapidly. Vince gently fanned Ryan with his hand, his voice uncharacteristically soft as he called him a delicate little thing and thanked him for his hard work. From the floor, the cheetah let out a faint, protesting meow. They never did get their barbecue chicken. Miller's colleagues took the hyena thug into custody, and Chloe and Julian decided to return immediately to report everything to Ethan. Ryan, after a short rest, recovered and stayed on set to continue filming. Vince also remained, claiming he wanted to monitor the situation. Julian suspected he was more worried about Ryan than he let on. It was Vince, after all, who had cleaned up the online mess and suppressed the news about the on-set troubles. Perhaps it was all just business, related to Ethan's project, but Julian saw a flicker of genuine care. On the drive back that night, Chloe called Ethan and filled him in on the entire ordeal. The moment Julian walked through his front door, Ethan was there, running his hands over him from head to toe, his eyes filled with a raw, urgent concern as he asked if Julian was hurt. Julian shook his head, assuring him he was completely fine. In truth, he hadn't done much of anything. It was Chloe, Ryan, and Vince who had solved the problem. He confessed to Ethan that he felt like a weak link in their little group. Ethan immediately dismissed the thought. He told Julian he was different. When they fought, he didn't want Julian anywhere near the fray. He gently touched Julian's head, saying his only job was to be their good luck charm. Julian then asked about the hyenas. Ethan's expression soured. He spoke of them with disdain, calling them a group of opportunistic schemers who thrived on backstabbing. He suspected that seeing his new partnership with the formidable Wong family, they had gotten jealous and wanted to force their way in for a share of the profits. He ran his fingers through Julian's hair again, his voice hardening as he promised that now that he knew who was behind the sabotage, he knew exactly what to do. Julian watched his face, thinking about the other shifters he had seen today. Both the cheetah and the hyena had transformed with ease at will. But Ethan couldn't. When he was troubled, he would retreat into his lion form, unable or unwilling to change back. The CO was far more sensitive and vulnerable than he appeared. Julian recalled the day after their moment of mutual comfort, when Ethan had become a lion and shed so much fur. He wondered what had been weighing so heavily on his mind. After that day, filming proceeded smoothly. With one of their own in custody, the hyenas seemed to have backed off. The story of Ryan's heroic actions on set, shielding the child actress from the falling rig and chasing down the saboteur, was leaked to the press. Videos of the incident went viral. Not only did he save a child, but he had also helped the police apprehend a criminal. Mainstream news outlets picked up the story, and praise for Ryan exploded online. People lauded him as a brave, responsible hero. The videos showing his long legs and lean waist as he effortlessly vaulted over obstacles made him look impossibly cool. His fan base swelled overnight. Julian was certain this was Vince's handiwork, leaking the videos and buying trending spots online. Whatever the method, Ryan's popularity skyrocketed, bringing a massive wave of positive publicity to the film. The cloud of gloom over the production lifted, and they quickly made up for lost time. In their group chat, now playfully nicknamed the Prairie Police Department, the mood was jubilant. Ethan rarely spoke in the chat, but Julian knew he enjoyed watching the lively banter. He was also a little worried about the hyena situation. The thug they caught had insisted it was merely a labor dispute, a personal vendetta. But somehow, Ethan had managed to extract a hefty compensation from the hyenas, enough to cover all the production's losses. The lion was still a fearsome predator. Ethan was in his study. Julian prepared a cup of tea for him and brought it in. Ethan took a sip while still looking at his computer, then immediately frowned. He looked at Julian, asking what this sickeningly sweet concoction was. Julian explained, with a perfectly straight face, that it was an herbal blend for energy and circulation with a bit of rock sugar. Ethan gave him a look as if he were an alien, asking why on earth he would need that. Julian said he seemed busy lately and thought it might help him feel more refreshed. The real reason was that Ethan's shedding had been getting worse, and he thought a revitalizing tea might ease his anxiety. Ever since his mother-in-law's potent everything but the kitchen sink herbal soup, Ethan had a deep-seated distrust of such remedies. He insisted he was perfectly fine, but he drank the tea anyway. After setting the cup down, Ethan hesitated. His eyes remained fixed on the computer screen, feigning intense focus, but his hand darted out and gave Julian's arm a quick, comforting pat. At the same time, a single word escaped his lips. "Thanks." Julian was stunned. Since when was the CEO so considerate? Ethan had been very strange recently, with all the light touches and physical contact, and his tone had softened considerably. It was unsettling. After being conditioned to his sharp edges for so long, the absence of criticism felt like something was missing. But there was one significant improvement. Ethan had finally stopped being so reserved about his other form. When he felt overwhelmed, he would simply transform and allow Julian to groom him. Julian would not only brush his thick mane but also massage his massive head with his fingers. The lion would close his eyes, a contented rumble vibrating in his chest. Julian longed to scratch his chin and belly, but he didn't dare, not yet. During these grooming sessions, he noticed that the shedding hadn't improved. Despite the lion's apparent relaxation, Julian knew a deep-seated worry still troubled his boss. To help him unwind, Julian suggested they go out for the weekend. It was something he'd learned since their marriage. Ethan was a homebody. Unless it was for work, he preferred to stay in. It was a classic male lion trait. Long periods of indolence to conserve energy, only to spring into action with claws bared and fangs showing when his territory was threatened. But Julian thought a change of scenery would do him good. Their marriage wasn't public knowledge, so they rarely went out alone together. The one time Ethan had awkwardly taken him to a restaurant, they had been spotted by colleagues, causing a minor stir that Chloe had to smooth over. This time, Daniel, Ethan's uncle-in-law, was having a gallery opening in the city. Julian saw it as the perfect opportunity. They were unlikely to run into anyone from the office, and they could support Daniel at the same time. He nervously proposed the idea to Ethan, fully expecting to be turned down. To his surprise, Ethan just looked at him and said, "All right." Julian stared at him, asking if he was serious. Ethan seemed puzzled by his reaction, replying that it was Julian's idea. "Wasn't it?" Julian nodded dumbly, shocked that it had been so easy. He had been preparing a whole campaign of gentle persuasion. So, that weekend, they went out for what Julian privately defined as their first real date. He had intended to drive, but Ethan firmly steered him to the passenger seat. Julian didn't even bother to argue about his driving skills anymore. It was a rare sight, the CEO chauffeuring his assistant. When they arrived, Daniel was waiting for them at the gallery. He was as elegant as ever. Though things could be tense when Arthur and Ethan, two stoic icebergs, were in the same room, Ethan had always been polite to Daniel. Daniel smiled as he watched the young couple walk in together. It was cold outside, and Ethan was wearing a heavy overcoat and a scarf. Inside the climate-controlled gallery, Julian naturally reached out to take Ethan's scarf, draping it over his own arm. Ethan cooperated, ducking his head slightly as Julian's hands came near. Daniel saw the effortless intimacy of the gesture, a knowing glint in his eyes. He greeted them and gave them a personal tour of the exhibition. He told them he was happy they could make it, remarking that Ethan was just like his uncle, a hermit when not at work. Ethan, matter-of-factly, said that Julian had wanted to come, so he accompanied him. Julian thought to himself that it was more about dragging a stressed-out lion out of his den, but he kept that to himself. Daniel looked at Julian teasingly, saying he was lucky to have Ethan willing to go out with him. He complained that he himself was always running around while Arthur never paid him any mind. Julian didn't know how to respond and just smiled. After a while, Daniel left them to mingle with other guests. As they browsed the art, Julian couldn't help but comment to Ethan that Daniel and the chairman seemed very much in love. Despite Daniel's light-hearted complaints, his expression softened whenever he mentioned Arthur. Ethan was non-committal about his uncle's domestic life, simply stating they had been together for many years. Julian finally voiced the question that had been bothering him. He asked how they managed, given that Daniel was allergic to animal fur. Ethan froze, staring at him with undisguised shock. He demanded to know how Julian knew that. Julian blinked, explaining that Daniel himself had told him, mentioning he sometimes had to wear a mask. Ethan's expression smoothed back into its usual impassivity. He claimed he wasn't aware that his entire family were lions. Julian was astonished. Was it possible that after 20 years of marriage, Daniel had never found out? He immediately dismissed the idea. He had figured it out within months of his own fake marriage. Daniel couldn't possibly be completely oblivious. He then remembered Daniel mentioning that a severe allergic reaction had once caused him to collapse, and afterward, he couldn't recall what animal had triggered it. A complex, strange look crossed Julian's face. Ethan put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed gently, telling him they were doing fine and not to worry. Julian looked up at Ethan's handsome face and nodded. The CEO was becoming more patient with him. He no longer shut him out or refused to explain things. He even offered comfort now. He was still guarded and awkward, but he was changing little by little. Ethan shifted the topic to the art, and they walked through the gallery together. He leaned in close to ask Julian if he understood any of it. Julian honestly shook his head. Ethan's lips curved into a slight smile, and for once, Julian knew it wasn't mockery. He hadn't really been clamoring to come, after all. He had only tentatively asked. Ethan, having received an elite education and with an artist like Daniel in the family, knew a surprising amount about art. He began to explain the different painting styles to Julian. They walked side by side, speaking in low voices, their proximity natural and intimate. Ethan seemed completely relaxed, showing no signs of the stress that caused his shedding. Julian felt a surge of gladness that they had come out. He remembered how suffocating it had felt at the beginning of their marriage, working for his boss all day only to come home and continue playing the part of a subordinate. But now they spent almost all their time together, even weekends, and he didn't feel tired of it at all. He cherished it. It was simple, really. He was falling more and more in love with Ethan. After touring the gallery, they went to the rooftop cafe. It was a beautifully designed space, with 3 sides enclosed by floor-to-ceiling glass to block the wind while letting in the sunlight, bathing everything in a warm glow. While Julian went to the restroom, Ethan sat alone at a small table, pulling out his phone. He overheard a conversation from the table behind him. 2 women were talking, not bothering to lower their voices. It soon became clear they were discussing their husbands. One of them was complaining that marriage shouldn't be a compromise. She lamented that when her husband proposed, it was a rushed, perfunctory affair, which she now saw as a sign of his lack of commitment. Ethan's mouth twitched. He remembered cornering Julian in his office and bluntly telling him to marry him in exchange for money. He could still picture the stunned look on Julian's face. The other woman tried to console her friend, saying that marriage was about daily life, not grand gestures. But the first woman was inconsolable. She said the proposal was just the start. The honeymoon was also a joke, just a few days at some random domestic resort. Every time she thought about it, she felt cheated. Ethan's eyelid began to twitch. He remembered passing off a company retreat as their honeymoon. What on earth had he been thinking? The woman concluded with a statement that made Ethan's chest tighten. Every time she recalled those moments, she felt deeply wronged. When Julian returned, he found Ethan sitting with a deep frown, lost in thought. He asked what was wrong. Ethan looked up, and in his eyes, Julian saw the same heavy burden that had been there before. He wondered what could have happened in the few minutes he was gone. Ethan's lips moved, but he just said it was nothing. Julian felt a strange, bold idea take root. Ethan's business was going well, he had met his uncle's demands, and his friendships were solid. Yet he was still stressed. Could he, Julian, be the source of that stress? The thought stunned him. Had he been putting pressure on the CEO? But how? Seeing Julian lost in his own world, Ethan reached out and tugged his arm. Julian snapped back to reality and forced a smile. Ethan then reached up and pressed the back of his hand to Julian's forehead, asking why he looked so pale. The gesture was so unexpectedly tender. Ethan was a large, imposing man, and even sitting down, his presence filled the space. Yet here he was, gently touching Julian's face in a crowded public cafe, completely oblivious to the curious glances they were drawing. Julian, blushing, pulled Ethan's hand away, murmuring that it was nothing, probably just the wind. Hearing this, Ethan picked up the scarf from the back of the chair and wrapped it around Julian's neck. Julian was floored. With his long, elegant fingers, Ethan tied a neat knot and adjusted it until it sat snugly against Julian's chest. He told him to stay warm and not catch a cold. Julian looked up at the sky, half expecting a miracle. The CEO was taking care of him. The anxiety he'd felt just moments before melted away, replaced by a warm, sweet feeling. He buried his face in the scarf, his eyes, framed by his glasses, peeking out as he whispered, "Okay." They sat for a while longer before leaving. Behind them, the two women resumed their conversation. One wondered aloud what their relationship was, concluding they must be a couple. The taller one was so attentive, wrapping the scarf for his cute boyfriend. The woman who had been complaining about her husband's sighed wistfully. She said if her husband were that handsome, she would forgive him for anything. They finished their tour and met back up with Daniel. Ethan purchased 2 paintings as a show of support, and then they headed home shoulder to shoulder. Julian felt the day had been a success. Ethan seemed relaxed, and even if Julian was somehow the source of his stress, the CEO clearly didn't resent being with him. In fact, he was becoming more considerate. That, at least, meant he held a place in Ethan's heart. The thought made him blush again. Back at their house, Ethan suddenly asked him if he felt wronged by their marriage. Julian looked up, momentarily taken aback, before answering seriously that he didn't. He said his life here was happy and interesting, far better than he had ever expected. Ethan lowered his gaze, hiding a flicker of joy, and cleared his throat. "Good," he said. Wanting to put Ethan's mind at ease, Julian added that he was even getting paid twice. The CEO's face instantly darkened. With a grunt, Ethan turned and strode up the stairs, leaving Julian behind, scratching his head, completely baffled by what he had said wrong.